Ivy Dench-Carter is the Senior Vice President of Development at Pennrose. She oversees the execution and growth of Pennrose's development pipeline within multiple designated regions as identified in Pennrose's strategic plan and monitors regional performance and efficiency. Ivy also provides executive representation of Pennrose among industry organizations and associations, financial partners, design and construction partners, housing authorities, and state agencies. Ivy joined Pennrose Management Company in 1990 as a property manager, and in 1995, she moved to the development arm of Pennrose, expanding her career from property management to real estate development in the affordable housing area. Ivy's community outreach work is constant. She continues to enjoy meeting with public housing residents and community stakeholders to alleviate their fears of redevelopment and ensuring the development process brings equitable opportunities. Ivy began her career in property management, giving her a unique perspective during the development process. Her experience ranges from standalone affordable housing development deals to complex mixed income, mixed finance, and multi-phase redevelopment projects, including OAP, RAD, upfront grant, and choice programs. While most of her career has been redevelopment of public housing, her office is also focused on mixed income, mixed use, and multi and market rate developments. Throughout her career, Ivy has developed over 35 projects totaling approximately 2,400 units. Many of these projects involve public housing authorities and government agency-owned land, requiring the negotiation of complex land deposition agreements and master development agreements. Ivy, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here finally, and I apologize for the technical difficulties.
It's definitely more than understandable, and thanks for being so accommodating. Just so for our rest of our audience, anything that maybe not touched in the bio, is there anything else that you wish that your audience knew about you?
Oh, well, I think the most important of who I am, I'm a mother of two wonderful young men, not a grandmother yet, and I'm not sure I'm quite ready to be at this point in time. I enjoy tennis, playing, watching. I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan, which may not go over well with our listeners in the Washington, D.C. area. But however, I root for the Redskins. Oh, sorry. What's the new name of the team?
Washington football team. That's officially it.
Yes.
For now.
Yeah, I have to be socially correct here, but I root for you guys to beat Dallas. So there we go.
Definitely. That's all pluses in my book. Great. So we talked a little bit about your property management experience. How did your experience in property management translate into development?
It was important for the principals of Pennrose at the time to bring over someone who had experience in managing the projects that were being developed. And one of the top things that back then, that was a long time ago, was making sure we weren't making mistakes from a design perspective. And I'm sure you guys can understand that, making sure that buildings were designed so that they could be operated efficiently and would be a long-standing asset for the ownership entity. I think the other thing that I bring is that I'm especially empathetic to the staff. Our property managers and maintenance staff have been on the front lines and are always on the front lines, and they have an incredible amount of work that's on them, and especially during the last year in the pandemic. We're proud to say we didn't lay anyone off. We continued to operate our properties to make sure that our residents were safe and also that staff was safe as well.
That's pretty amazing. That's great to hear. So in the 30 years you've been with Pennrose, and you've developed approximately 2,400 affordable housing units, which projects are you most proud of, and which ones were the most challenging?
I will say the project that there's actually two projects that really touched my heart. I managed a Hope 6 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, at the Macaulay Homes Public Housing Project. We were awarded that and partnered with the Housing Authority in Chattanooga. And my mom, my grandmom, my aunts actually lived in that public housing project when they were children. And my family church that was pastored by my great grandfather and subsequently by my uncle was around the corner from the property. So back then, Hope 6, the residents were still fearful about redevelopment. And fortunately, a lot of them knew me. Oh, that's Reverend Spencer's great-granddaughter, or that's Ivy. I was really able to garner the trust of the community and to be able to redevelop a project where my mother lived, our family church was in. That was probably the most satisfying project that I've ever worked on.
That's pretty awesome. Definitely to be able to get back to a community where you have roots is awesome. And now is that the most challenging, or do you have another project that you would think was the most challenging project?
They're all challenging. They're all challenging. I think the first one that comes to mind that has been the most challenging are 4 projects that are currently under construction in Fairfax County, Virginia. And that site, we've got a 50-foot retaining wall. I don't know if people on the line know what marine clay soil is. Just a really complicated, challenging site that took us, a couple of years to make sure that the engineering was correct. We've got a public park in the back. We've got market rate homeownership units that a developer is doing. We've got 279 affordable units, including senior units on the site, and it's directly on a state highway, on Richmond Highway. So that, the dirt, the engineering, the required retaining walls, just extremely challenging. But we got through it. We closed. We're in construction right now, and I'm really excited about that. But the 4 affordable housing projects included in the redevelopment were as a result of 9-4 combo applications with Virginia Housing. So 4 closings at one time, different investors, different lenders, extremely complicated.
Like that. Talk a little bit about the region. You've served 6 years as regional vice president for Maryland, DC, and Virginia. How does a company like Pennrose deal with all the regional differences when it comes to development and needs and the culture differences?
Well, that's actually a great question. And it starts with our principals and their wisdom to ensure that we knew we had to manage and plan for our expansion. We're very deliberate regarding what regions we go into. And it's, really a part of our strategic plan for the enterprise to determine what regions we're going to expand in. Is it a region that we can excel in and that we can produce quality, affordable housing in? And the culture within our organization is really built on support, making sure that we are providing our staff and the people who work in the various departments have what they need from a leadership perspective, an educational perspective. We're really proud that, for, I think, in the last 5 years, 3 years out of the last 5, I believe it is, we've been awarded Employer of Choice by the Philadelphia Business Journal. Philadelphia is where our home office is, and it houses our 3 principals, our development staff that cover New Jersey and Pennsylvania, as well as our management company. So we're really focused on our colleagues that work with us to make sure that we're doing a good job and really maintaining that culture that's made us successful over the years.
Okay, that's awesome. Congratulations that last December you became the Senior Vice President of the How have your first 5 months been?
It's been exciting and challenging, but I'd say in a good way. it's really been intellectually stimulating, making a transition from a regional vice president to senior vice president of development, really thinking about new processes to make the enterprise more efficient, making sure that we're providing the necessary support to our development staff. But I think the most important responsibility that I've taken on since the promotion is leading our diversity, equity, and inclusion program within the organization. That's really, the fun part of my job right now. And to have the support of the principals. We actually have we're going through a refresh of our 10-year strategic plan, and, really involving the people who work for us to be a part of that process and be a part of the DEI strategy, and making sure that we're meeting their needs, seeing how they feel through their lens, and making sure that we are doing things that are going to be inclusive and equitable down the line.
Piggybacking off that inclusivity, what are your leadership strategies, and what advice do you give to young women in business?
I would say, from my experience and other colleagues within the industry, that it's not okay to accept the status quo. We should be sure that we're confident in what we bring to the table, and be vocal as it relates to voicing what your strengths are and what your opinion is. And I think sometimes as women, we are brought up to kind of accept the status quo, but I think we're more accepted in the boardroom. We definitely are looking for more women within the development arena. It's really important to us because I do feel we bring a different perspective to the table in some instances.
And branching that out from the workplace into the development community, you're a Maryland native and you've had many years of experience in the region. So what do you think are the most important constraints that we need to create to have more equitable development in Maryland?
I've worked in a number of different states, have worked in a number of different states. And I will say that Maryland, in my estimation, is almost at the head of the pack as it comes to supporting the development of affordable housing. The Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition, the board that I'm on, we have a fabulous relationship with the executive staff at CDA in Maryland. We've been talking every 2 weeks with their staff since COVID hit, to work with them to ensure that they are deploying the rental relief money efficiently and effectively, so that the landlords can get these rents and make sure that we can continue to provide affordable housing. But they're doing a great job. I mean, it is refreshing to work with a state agency that looks to the affordable development community to assist them in putting programs together and funding together to make sure that we continue to provide affordable housing, but also to continue to provide jobs that are derived from the construction of affordable housing in Maryland.
Oh, it's great to be a part of a state that does kind of really appreciate the importance of affordable housing, especially in light of the pandemic. So it's definitely important work. You also are part of Mayor Brandon Scott's transition team as part of the business workforce and the neighborhood development committee. Where do you see Baltimore going in the next 4 years?
I think Baltimore is going to be fine. And I think Baltimore is going to come out of this probably in a better economic position that they were previously in with the new leadership of Mayor Scott. Unfortunately, Baltimore hasn't done a good job in the past of promoting its strengths and all of the good things that happen in Baltimore. And, that is one of the things that we've recommended to Mayor Scott and his leadership team is that, people need to understand that Baltimore is great. It's in between Philadelphia, it's in between DC. The cost of living is less expensive than it is in the DC region and parts of Northern Virginia and even in Philadelphia. And it's really a great location. We've got wonderful educational facilities, medical facilities in Baltimore City. And, we will continue to grow the city and build upon the strengths that it currently has. So 4 years from now, it's going to be okay. And we'll get the word out that Baltimore is a great city to live in.
That's awesome. So talking about the future, how about the next 5 years for Ivy Dench-Carter professionally? Where do you see things?
Oh, that's a tough question. And no, I'll put it this way: the answer is probably very boring. I've been with Pennrose on and off for 30 years, and it's my home. It's my second family. And I look forward to retiring here and making us the best that we can be and assisting our departments and our staff and moving up within the organization, be a part of the succession planning of the organization and growing the company. It's my home. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be at Pennrose in 5 years. Check back with me in 5 years and let's see if what I'm saying is accurate.
Great. Well, I'm going to start seeing if anyone in the audience had any questions as well. So feel free to
sure.
send them on. I think first one's actually from Paola. She said, DEI is a main pursuit for several agencies. In the cycle of development, how do you see more opportunities in finance, development, design, and property management for minorities?
That's a great question, Paola. That's something we already do as an organization, even before it has become something that other companies are striving for. I was on a call last week with an affordable housing organization. I'm on their DEI committee. And, I heard some people talking about, well, this state has just started requiring that we do this, and how do we do it? And I'm thinking we already do it. We do partner with minority firms in our projects. We want to make sure that from a construction perspective, that we're training people that live in the community, that live in the public housing projects that we work with, that they're getting opportunities to get a job and keep a job. And we have partners, minority partners from a development perspective, and hoping that we're building their capacity. So at some point in time, there isn't that need for them to partner with a large for-profit agency, and that we're growing their financial balance sheet. The diversity, everybody understands. The equity and the inclusion are probably the two most important pieces of DEI. And it's not about black and white. It's about so much more, and making sure that people have a fair chance from an educational perspective, from a workplace perspective, from a healthcare perspective, and making sure that we're providing the educational opportunities so that they can be, homeowners. And, if you look at some of the statistics that are out, I was on a webinar earlier this week with Bank of America, and just to see the statistics of how so many of us have been left behind in the building of wealth within the United States. It's really discouraging and disappointing, and we have to do something about it.
Okay. I have a question as well. So we talked a little bit about development of Baltimore kind of on the rise. What do you see as important things that we need to put in place so that as Baltimore does start to develop more, that we don't leave communities behind as well in that development?
One thing we focused on my transition team was about workforce development and making sure that there are programs out there and getting the word out that, we do have this program and we can help you get the skills that you need to join the workforce. So workforce development is going to be huge because we've got to put families back to work, not only from job loss as a result of the pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic. It's about creating equitable and financeable workforce programs. And we just can't have a program out there without the funding that it needs to make it successful. So really funding workforce programs to get people back to work.
All right, thanks. Are there other questions here? I just wanted to thank you though for calling in even during this tornado. I mean, hopefully it wasn't too scary of an experience that you had to.
No, it was very, I relocated to Georgia, and so it's kind of a different weather pattern here.
Yeah.
And so midnight, it looked like it was in the middle of the afternoon. It was scary, but we were fine and no damage to the house. But hopefully I will get internet back soon.
Well, I'm glad that you are safe, and also thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We definitely appreciate your insight and what you had to advice that you had to offer us all.
I was wondering, particularly in affordable housing, what site aspects do you are red flags? What are sites in which you would just stay away from completely? And do you have any examples of such stories like that in the DC area?
We find solutions to those challenging sites. And it's oftentimes you don't really realize that you have a problem until you get into the dirt. And, I don't care how many soil borings we may do, what the environmental report may say, oftentimes until you get in the dirt, you may discover something. And that's what has happened on our North Hill projects in Fairfax County. We work with awesome partners from civil engineering firms, geotechnical firms, because that's the largest risk when you're doing a new construction project. Is the dirt? Is there rock? Are there environmental concerns? We found an oil tank that had been buried and was leaking on the site that didn't show up in any of the soil borings, did not show up on any of the environmental reports. And so those are the kinds of things that we have to mitigate and understand what those risks are before going into these types of projects.
Adrian had a quick question too.
Go ahead.
So what are your thoughts and recommendations, for us architects, to sort of function and work better as a team with companies like yourself?
That's a great question. I'll be a little snippy and say, don't design the Taj Mahal.
Oh, drat.
I know, right? It takes all the fun out of it.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's, what we've done and what we've created, given, how long we've been in business, we actually have a design standards manual that we provide to the entire design team, the architect, the civil, and the general contractor, because over the years, we know what systems work and what don't, because what we're looking at is making sure that we can operate the project for the long haul. And so what we do in our organization, everybody's at the table from day one, the architect, the civil, the general contractor, as well as our property management staff and our construction manager, so that, we are all starting off with a blank sheet and providing input to the various team members about, that's going to cost you $500,000. But if you do it this way, that's only going to cost maybe $300,000. And we need team members that are inclusive, cooperative, and open to the suggestions that are being made at our design team meetings. So it's a really very inclusive process that we go through. And at the end of the day, when we're in construction, we do not tolerate, nor do we create an atmosphere of finger pointing. You know, we all started day one. We all have gone through the plans. We do page by page reviews at 50%. And at 90%, we go through every single page, all of the disciplines, including the structural, the electrical, HVAC. Everybody's at the table going through the documents page by page to make sure that we've not missed anything and that the plans are coordinated from an architectural and a civil perspective.
Okay, one other question, and again, this is related to the Eagles, right? You said you were an Eagles fan?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so,
okay.
So what are your thoughts for the team? I mean, especially the quarterback situation.
I'm gonna, I was very disenchanted this year because
they went from first to last, right? I think they went from first to last. Okay.
We'll be okay next year. Okay. You know, I think they made the right decision. And we'll see. I think we need to beef up our offensive line because I don't care how great your quarterback may be. If you don't have a good offensive line, you know, you've got to protect that quarterback and give them time to make plays.
Thank you.
Who's your team?
The Washington Football Club.
Okay. Okay.
Vinay just makes us all feel good on Fridays. So that's, he is our offensive line, basically.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be happy to get back to normal. And in the last season, I really don't think it counted. You know, it was, you know, all the players weren't there. We were injured. You know, it was ridiculous the number of injuries we had on our team. So, you know, we'll see what happens this season.
Yeah, we'll be waiting for the Eagles to sort of fly again, but, you know, we'll see.
Okay, I'll see you at the stadium.
Oh my gosh. Well, Ivy, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully everything get back to normal soon in multiple ways. Yeah. Thanks again. And thanks everyone on the team for joining us as well for the call.
And can I say one thing? I really do appreciate the invite. I'm very honored, and I think this is a wonderful venue to have these chats, and look forward to talking to you all again soon.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Definitely.
Thank you, Ivy.
Again.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.